Hi everyone, Matt Lawton here. This is the Astrological Winds channel, and we've got three things to look at this week. First off, I'm going to quickly go over the month of September and a quick first look at the bigger events in September going on, and then we'll look at the week ahead, which is August 31st through September 6th, so in effect mainly the first week of September. And then in particular I want to look at the full moon, which is basically Tuesday night, late Wednesday morning, early full moon in Pisces. So let's first look at the month. In the month of September, there's three main events that I think are the main things that we're going to feel the shifts of energy in the background with. And it's just three planets changing direction. And the first one I've been talking about now for about a month or so, and that is going to be on September 9th. We're going to have Mars go retrograde near the end of Aries, and will be retrograde until early mid-November. So go backwards through about half of Aries and stay in Aries until late December. So basically retrograde Mars is, for me, one of the ways I like to describe it is like a lot of you are aware of Mercury retrograde and how that can affect us. So like, to me, retrograde Mars is like Mercury retrograde on steroids. Basically, it's like a lot of our actions are just going to be blocked or not going to go the way we normally expect them to go. So, and like I've said before, the square to Saturn that Mars is making as it goes retrograde is also a double whammy with like blocked actions. So like a lot of our individual actions, in particular Mars and Aries, and what we like to do are going to like really be a frustrating experience for a couple months. Then on September 12th, Jupiter will go direct. So remember, we have all these planets retrograde, all these outer planets. So Jupiter is going to be the first one over the next several months. They will all start to turn direct again. And Jupiter is the first one of our social planets. And Jupiter has been in Capricorn all year, spends about a year in a sign, and it just cannot wait to get out of Capricorn. So I'm sure for Jupiter, it's feeling like, yeah, let's just go direct, get these last 4 months, 3 or 4 months or so of Capricorn out of the way so I can get out of the sign of my fall. And what we've seen is like the things that Jupiter rule this year in the social spheres have really taken a lot of hits, and that's like law. We've seen like a lot of like questionable uses of the law in many societies this year. Medicine, the issues with the virus, not being able to come up with a cure for the virus, big issues this year. Issues with secondary education, where all the schools and colleges cannot function the way they normally do. Issues with travel, in particular travel that's long distance and vacation and fun oriented, completely shut down. So you can see when a planet that rules certain things is in a weak sign, what the result of that may be. Now, there's obviously alternative ways to work around things like that, but like I said, Jupiter will be going direct, and very happy to get out of Capricorn in a few months. And then on September 29th, Saturn, the other social planet, will also go direct. And remember, Jupiter and Saturn are like pretty much opposite in the way they perform energy-wise within society. Jupiter represents expansion, Saturn represents restriction. So together they create a balance. Now, what I think, when Saturn went back into Capricorn on July 5th and has been spending the last couple months there while it's retrograde, once it goes forward, I think what Saturn is realizing in Capricorn, where it's still strong during this retrograde period, is that yes, a lot of the structures within our societies are no longer functioning well. They may have worked well at one time, but now they no longer are. So even though Saturn is strong in Capricorn and protects experience and structure and heritage in the past through wisdom and knowing how to handle things, it's still its lower octave. So like when it starts going forward and will also go back into Aquarius, which it also rules, but that's its higher octave. That's where it sees that the structure that's in place really needs some improvements, and then Saturn opens to that. So I think really this last couple months has really shown a lot of people that the structures we have are not functioning well for the majority of the people in different societies. And this isn't just the United States. You know, as I said to someone the other day, the United States is not the only country that's in social unrest right now. There's about 60 countries in the world, at least, that are experiencing social unrest, protesting against the government and the way things are being done. So like we're not alone in experiencing this energy. So, all right, so that's the main stuff with the monthly. Now this week, the week of August 30th, or 31st, I should say, through September 6th, we have, main thing I want to mention is a continuation of our two stories from last week of Mercury and Venus. And remember, I told you last week, Mercury with its trine to Jupiter was like really in a positive way of like communications, new ideas we might have, things like that. And this week that story will continue. So this week Mercury will trine Pluto on Tuesday, and then it'll trine Saturn on Thursday, and then it will sextile Venus on Friday, and then it will go into Libra on Saturday. So 4 really positive things with the Mercury story continuing. And I really, like said last week, you might have some kind of ideas that are like expansive, could be business related, could be education, information, things like that, even travel possibly for some of us. But anyway, now we have that idea. And I said last week, a lot of it is like really, you know, more likely within ourselves and subjective and stuff, but it's still a time to move forward with that. Well, this week is the week where we roll up the sleeves and we get down to the nitty gritty. And the Mercury-Pluto trine will allow us to do the research that we need to do on very deep levels on whatever those ideas are that we kind of came spurred up with last week. So really a really focused, precise mind can actually get narrow-minded, or in a sense like streamlined on what you're like focused on or your interest in your mind is right now. So that's like really good energy to develop, you know, the plans that we may have came up with, or the ideas that we may have came up with on a broader vision sense last week. Now, it also, like, just on a strictly personal level too, it's a really good time to look within ourselves and look at how the way we think and say things may be related to like the way we were kind of indoctrinated psychologically when we were younger. So like it gives us an opportunity to like see that clearly, like it can kind of come up and not get so triggered on it that we get angry or resentful, but rather we would use that energy to purge a lot of that stuff and replace it with what we really believe in our experiences, and stop being attached to what others may have taught us or indoctrinated us into when we were younger. So then Mercury goes on to Saturn, and Mercury Saturn together is like the efficient business person. So like this is when you can spell all the details out to your plans in a practical, real world manner and move forward with them. So communication is concise, it's not wasteful, and it's practical. It's based on real world things. So those are the connections that flow best, stuff like business connections, education connections, counseling, and getting advice kind of connections, either from more experienced people or older people or authorities. It works well with authorities this week, so like it's a good week to like get paperwork into authorities because it'll probably be accepted and flow through their system easier. So things like that, it's a really good time. But once again, it does kind of give like a narrow focus and stuff, and you're not really into wasting words or time or resource with abstracts or just anything that you would consider a waste of time, really. So, and then Mercury moves into a sextile with Venus on Friday, which is really nice too. Usually when Mercury and Venus get together like that, it can really elicit a light-hearted, pleasant mood. The mind is seeking, a break, basically, some kind of entertainment, amusement, distraction. But it's also like when Mercury and Venus get together, like love is kind of like intellectualized a bit, like so like people are able to express their feelings in words better, and so they have good connections with one another. It's really a time where you like to be with your friends, like to be the company. It's also a time where people seek out doing things like going out, socializing, which can be hard to do now, taking in art, some kind of art form, music, or just going out and seeing art, things like that, or even making art too. It's also very creative, especially with words. So that's all going on Friday. And then Saturday, and that's at the 29th degree too, so it's like at the critical degree. So some like important stuff that can be communicated between you and loved ones and friends and stuff on that day. And then Saturday, Mercury goes into Libra, which is like, Mercury in Libras, find some balance. It's interesting. I think, Mercury normally likes to move fast, Quicksilver, make decisions quick, and therefore can become impatient with others. But I think when it goes into Libra, it goes out of the the fast lane, the passing lane, and kind of goes into the middle lane, and is like cruising, and so there's a lot of give and take with our communications and information. It's more balance between you and other, like not being dominated by one or the other. So it's like a really good time for diplomatic type of skills, basically, where you can hammer out fair and equitable plans and negotiations, transactions. Mercury being the the planet that rules business. It's really good for business deals and negotiations, things like that. The thing with Mercury and Libra is it will weigh everything carefully. So it's like it's got it on that scale of like, you know, a pro and con kind of scale. So it doesn't move at that faster rate that Mercury normally moves at. It's more like, hey, let me kind of take my time and see, you know, and weigh things out, get my like mental pro and con, left and right column thing going on before I make a decision. So that's really good stuff with Mercury again this week. Like really good time to develop plans, do the research, take care of all the details, move forward, connect with others on it, and, you know, make the deals that you need to do, start moving ahead. So meanwhile, Venus, which, you know, had a good time in the middle of last week, but then started to run maybe into a little more intense times on the weekend, is in for some more intense times this week. Basically locking into a T-square with the Mars-Saturn square, which is kind of stationary or slowing down right now. So that Mars-Saturn square is locking in, which I've mentioned before. And now Venus is coming in to join them this week. And I think it's Wednesday, there's an exact opposition of Venus to Saturn. And then on Thursday, I believe, is the exact square to Mars. And then by Sunday, next week, Venus moves into Leo. So the T-square is going to bring a lot of tension in relationships for sure. You know, it's going to feel like relationships are blocking what you need to get. You know, like the Venus is still in Cancer, it's sensitive, a lot of family-oriented issues about your home, possibly your family could be triggering a lot of like intense energy. So like the Venus-Saturn opposition part is all about having to maybe make some serious decisions in relation to relationships, actually. And it actually does favor, once again, business relationships. So like it works well with the stuff that Mercury is doing this week, but as far as like family and fun and social relationships, Venus is definitely a little bit stressed still. And, you know, you may just feel like you have to make some serious decisions in relation to your family or partners, people like that, where you just have like this sober view of them now, this realistic view, and you can't allow yourself to be misled by thinking that things are going to be different than what you see in this contrast. So, you know, it can put a damper on a lot of like the more positive or more fun kind of relating that people do. A square to Mars too is definitely like tension energy. That's like, you know, tension almost like between the sexes kind of energy, yin yang tension. So like that can also bring in your romantic relationships where there may be some discord coming up in the desires and needs in those relationships. And then Venus being in Cancer and being sensitive right from the start, there may be a lot of sensitive feelings being hurt by what goes on. In new relationships, it'll bring like a lot of like creative spark up in tension, but somehow Saturn, you know, society is still blocking a lot of the development of like newer relationships. So like there's like this creative tension going on that like, you know, you want to have some action in those relationships, but like Saturn society situations are kind of blocking that from happening. But but that's like, and so like what that does is actually can like really spark a lot of creative energy within you personally to get that out, like so there's a lot of that energy is tied together. It's all that fifth house kind of energy tied up together, the spark of creativity, which, is our creative work that we do with our own hands and mind, like artistically, and that can be put into anything that we're doing creatively. And it also has a lot to do with, our romantic type relationships, because that is like where, a lot of the creative physical energy goes into for humans. So, and then by Sunday, Venus moves into Leo. So it's finally getting out of that whole Gemini Cancer thing that it's been going through, the retrograde in Gemini earlier in the year. And when Venus goes into Leo, it can get really vivacious, like wants to be the center of attention, wants to look good, wants to bring people into its circle, wants to show itself off in its best way. And friends are really important when Venus is in Leo. Leo is so loyal, to its friends and stuff. So Venus in Leo really wants to be with its friends, hanging out. And, Venus in Leo wants to be seen too. He's kind of like, the in crowd kind of thing, that wants to be seen with the right people, looking good in the right place, so it can definitely get a little egotistical, Venus in Leo, but she's definitely knows what she wants and she goes for it, and she's vivacious, she's charming, definitely a little vain and self-oriented, but very positive, and will only turn on you if you're dishonest and don't have integrity, and then will consider you an enemy then, so Venus doing some interesting stuff this week too. All right, let's get to that full moon. That's the last thing I want to talk about this week. So the full moon is late Tuesday night, early Wednesday morning, and it's a full moon in Pisces, and it's a full moon at about 10-11 degrees Pisces. So full moon in Pisces means the sun is in Virgo, so the sun and moon opposite one another on the Virgo Pisces axis, which is the axis of service to others, service to self. And the full moon is actually in a strong sextile to Uranus, partile or exact, which means the sun is trining Uranus. So that's the one aspect that's coming into. So first of all, moon in Pisces. Moon in Pisces is highly emotional. Full moons are highly emotional. So this is going to be a highly emotional full moon. You're really going to be feeling this stuff inside. And Pisces' whole drive is to become at one with whatever it's in contact with, and wants to blend with whatever people, places, things, situations, whatever it may be. Pisces is moving to blend, and in this case with the moon, emotionally, so picks up a lot of input from the people and in the environment around it. Very sensitive, and in fact we can be easily overwhelmed by emotional input. So if you need to take a break from people and places and things, that is what you should do. Because if you don't, Pisces starts to spin like a top and is easily misunderstood, can easily upset other people because they just don't understand where you're coming from, and they can't really make sense of any of the decisions that you're making. So, this, very, very emotional full moon. And then the sun in Virgo is the opposite of that Pisces energy. It wants everything precise. It wants everything spelled out. It wants a procedure written down, preferably, and followed step by step in a neat way. All of what Pisces is not about. So there's a lot of danger here with the ego becoming very critical of the emotional side of us, falling into self-judgment, which Virgo, being attached to our health, is not good for our health. It's better to get a view of how we hurt ourselves from emotions that we take in and are not processing properly. Under this full moon, we'll get a chance to see that, and with that Virgo energy, maybe develop a new health system for ourselves on all levels: physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. But Virgo, is basically telling Pisces, listen, if you take this too far, that means unclear boundaries. Unclear boundaries will get you lost and misunderstood. Pisces is water energy, and water energy can be very unpredictable. Sometimes it's a storm that's raging. Sometimes it's a placid, calm pond without a ripple in it. And so Virgo is like, sun is like, you need to ground that energy, or you'll be spinning like a top, lost and misunderstood, lost within, misunderstood by others. So Virgo is like, if you want to find these higher ideals, this higher inspiration, and make it something useful, you need to have some kind of procedure. And this is the time of the year where perfecting our procedures to reach our goals is very, very ripe and accessible. So it fits in with that too. Now, we also have, and the thing is too, when we let our emotions overwhelm us, what Virgo is telling us, it's like being on a boat without any way to steer it, no rudder. Like the water's just going to take us. If there's a whirlpool, you get sucked into the whirlpool. Or if it's a still and calm lake, you're not going to go anywhere. So Virgo is like, listen, got to get some discipline to those ideals in Pisces if you want to make them something real in this world for you. If you want to change your everyday experience, Virgo, your health, Virgo, how you serve yourself, Virgo, through serving others, Pisces, and through the ideals you have to share, Pisces, you need to have a correct procedure to do that and a plan. And the danger, of course, of Virgo is to get too narrow-minded on that. So you got to allow the Pisces downloads to come in to keep the creativity going. So we're going to get a little help from Uranus. Uranus is sextiling that moon and trining the sun. And in Taurus, an earth sign like Virgo, but retrograde right now. So what I'm thinking is there's going to be a lot of sparks of insight, or just seeing things as they are and how they're stuck during this full moon. And then the opportunities to change that can also be seen. Now, it's interesting, with Uranus and Taurus in retrograde, I would think that initially this is going to be stuff that you have to chew over still. Like, you'll get interesting insights and ideas, but it needs to, with the retrograde energy, it needs to mainly be chewed over inside still until probably Uranus goes direct. And with Taurus, Uranus and Taurus, it's the same thing as the Sun in Virgo. It's basically saying, listen, practical concerns are a very real thing to be taken care of, and coming up with new ideas to be able to fulfill them in the future, because they may not be working the way they used to be, which is what we're kind of seeing in the world right now. So Taurus is like all about our money and assets and our physical resources and stuff, and those things haven't been working as well. And Uranus is like, come up with new ways of working with those things, and we may get that idea of how to do that now, but it needs to be chewed on for a while internally before you'll be able to do much, which actually fits in with not only the retrograde of Uranus, but all this blocked energy of Mars being retrograde and blocked by Saturn and Jupiter in fall and Pluto this whole rest of this year. So this kind of fits in. So they, so like basically it also fits in with all that stuff Mercury's talking about the last 2 weeks, like new ideas, get them going, even if it's small steps now, even if it's you doing it by yourself now, that's the right thing to be doing. So, and then the ruler of this full moon is Jupiter. And as we know, Jupiter is not happy in Capricorn in fall. And so I think what we're seeing is Jupiter is showing, us that how a lot of our own like ideals and visions and values are not working anymore. They've caused us to fall. They, that we've held on to them for too long, and they're causing a fall, and that's, both socially and right down to an individual level. So, once again, that is favoring what the Sun in Virgo is saying, sex trine the Uranus, and that is need to like look at alternative new ways to deal with our practical needs and concerns, and that not get so lost in idealism that we can't even be understood by others anymore, and we're walking around in a cloud of self-confusion. So a lot of interesting energy to work with going on. I still think like we really need to focus the rest of this year really on internal changes that, are small steps that slowly go out locally first, that that you can't change the world. You can only change yourself, and focus on those things. And as I've said before, start moving forward on them. And my belief is that the right situations, people, things will come to you as you start to initiate that process. But I would not expect a lot of physical, real world progress on the material plane the rest of this year. So work on the emotional stuff inside. Get yourself straightened up first. Get your own health on all levels working correctly. Don't project your issues onto others, because that Virgo Sun can do that very easily and become very unpopular very fast, because other people see you as nitpicking, very critical, and a lot of times that's just projection. It's just things inside us being seen in other people and situations, and instead of owning it, blaming others. And the world's in a really big whirlpool of that right now. That's why we have leaders that are so subjectively egotistical that they can't see beyond themselves, because we're all kind of in that boat together. So we all need to start trying to find a boat with a rudder and a steering mechanism and start to take control first of our own selves, and with Virgo, our own healing, our own routine, our own service. Honor that to ourselves, honor that to others. All right, this is Matt Lawton. This is the Astrological Winds channel. I'm available for all kinds of readings, and I would love to help you out, become aware of the energy that's in your chart. Remember, all this stuff I'm saying is the world's astrology, but every day you have your own astrology going on too, that either blends or contrasts with the energy of the world. So you need to look at that too if you're still like thinking you don't have the whole picture. Anyway, my email is matthue823@gmail.com. And remember, this blog is a free service. I please encourage you to sign up to the channel, get the notifications. I do try to social media bomb people, and not everybody gets it every week because there's just too many people to do it to. And I do encourage you to share this blog with anyone who you think would be interested in it. Thanks so much, and until next week, when we'll get a little bit more, that's when Mars is going to go retrograde, so we'll talk about that a little bit more again. And until then, keep working on those things, do the research, do the development, start, taking care of the details, just taking the small steps forward. All right, until then, this is Matt Lawton signing off. Peace.